Imagine a person who commits a violent crime, then walks free because a court ruled that they were insane. This makes the public feel outraged, victims feel betrayed, and justice seems so elusive. This is the reality of the insanity plea, a controversial legal defense that has been debated for decades. Today, I want to argue why the insanity plea should be abolished. First, I'll explain the flaws in the current system and how it undermines justice. Second, I will discuss how the insanity plea harms victims and society. Third, I will propose practical alternatives that both uphold justice and address mental health concerns. Finally, I'll show you why these solutions are feasible and more effective than the current system. The insanity defense is supposed to protect people who genuinely cannot understand their actions due to mental illness. However, in practice, it often becomes a loophole that lets dangerous offenders avoid full accountability. A 2020 New York Times article highlights that the vague standards of insanity allow for inconsistent verdicts that confuse juries and frustrate victims. This inconsistency erodes trust in the legal system. Furthermore, the criteria for insanity varies between states and making the defense unpredictable. As noted, the Washington Post, some defendants who clearly understood their crime were still found insane due to expert testimony, bias, or illegal technicalities. This inconsistency damages the system's integrity. Victims and their families often feel injustice and is denied when offenders are institutionalized instead of punished. Studies like one published in Psychology Today found that many victims view the insanity plea as a get-out-of-jail-free card, which leads to a prolonged trauma and frustration. Moreover, people found not guilty by reason of insanity, which is also said as the NGRI, may spend less time confined than it convicted normally due to early release for treatment. According to Forbes, 40% of NGRI defendants were released within 5 years, while similar offenders convicted normally served longer sentences. This imbalance undermines deterrence and risks public safety. Now, instead of the insanity defense, we should adopt mental health courts that integrate treatment with accountability. These courts evaluate defendants' mental health and offer treatment as part of sentencing, not as a defense to criminal responsibility. The Bureau of Justice Statistics reports that mental health courts reduce recidivism by 20% and increase compliance with treatment plans. Additionally, sentencing reforms can mandate mental health evaluations during the sentencing phase, ensuring treatment needs are met without excusing criminal acts. This balances public safety with compassionate care. Critics may argue these solutions require resources and training. However, the initial investment is offset by long-term saving through reduced incarceration and recidivism. The National Alliance on Mental Illness states that mental health courts have been successfully implemented in over 300 jurisdictions in the U.S., proving kind of just overall the why the insanity plea should not be an excuse. Now, in conclusion, the insanity plea is definitely well-intentioned, but honestly, it fails like the justice in everything, and kind of like crumbles the justice system itself by creating this confusion, and it really harms victims, like not only the victims who had to go through it or go through what the perpetrator did, but also the family. They're victims too. Now, it's also threatening public safety because if if these people get out, it's not going to be just the It's not going to be just those people that were harmed. It could be us too. It could be anybody. Now, instead of clinging to this flawed defense, it's not right, and it should be abolished. And instead, I feel like we should invest in mental health courts, which are sentencing reforms that hold offenders accountable, while also addressing their mental health needs. So being able to find something that can help these people, but also that give them, that also make them accountable for their actions, even though they may be mentally ill. And justice determines accountability and compassion, but never at the expense of the other. And it's time for policy that reflects that balance.